Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for coming. We are most privileged to have Mr. Syed Babar Ali with us today. My name is Mariam Chughtai, and I have a doctorate from Harvard. I moved back to Pakistan. I worked with Syed Babar Ali at LUMS. We're very lucky to have some of the trustees with us. I don't know if the Vice Chancellor is here.
Yes, he's here.
Yes, sir.
So thank you very much for coming. We are going to try and wrap up the event in about 50-55 minutes. Babar Sahab has a competing commitment, but he was so generous to say that he doesn't want to miss an opportunity to engage with the students and the diaspora over here. So we'll just get right to it. The title of today's talk is Living a Life of Meaning. So I'll start with asking Babar Sahab, what do you think is a life of meaning? What do you consider to be a life of meaning?
Well, this is a cold call, but let me just sort of reflect on it. The meaning of life really is to try and be useful to others, to your family, and to make to spend time in a way that you have no regrets, and to try and be useful to others, and I think that is in itself a very useful aim to have.
Well, one of your biography is called Learning from Others, and a lot of people in this room are trailblazers in their own right. So what is the balance between, and you are a trailblazer in so many ways, in fact in every way, so what's the balance between learning from others and finding your own path, and how does one decide?
Well, I mean, the thing is really that you've got to have this hunger and thirst in you that you want to keep on learning. And what you learn is not just to accumulate all knowledge, but to try and see what you've learned, what part of that could be put into practice. So this is what I've done all my life, and this is, I mean, even today, we spent the last 3 hours in a meeting in one of the buildings at Harvard, and I was looking at it as to what new things one could learn at that time. So this is something which has been a passion with me all my life, and what little I've done is nothing original in it, but I've tried to emulate, to see what one had learned from others and how you could put it in practice, because you know, there's an old Persian saying that people who have learnt and not practiced are very unfortunate. Equally unfortunate are the ones who have earned and not spent it. So these are the things that one has tried to learn and try and emulate, to learn from others, and to see how you can make yourself more useful to society, yourself, and to the family.
So give us an example of something, maybe from your earlier times when you were about this age, younger, right out of college or university.
Well, I mean, that was part of one's learning, early stages of one's learning, and one didn't have too much opportunity really to practice what one was learning, other than to do your daily work and, you know, to try and carry out your mission, whatever job was given to you, you had to do it. But I tell you, the real turning point came out when I spent 3 months across the river here at the business school in 1973. I attended the advanced management program at the Harvard Business School. And that was really an eye-opener. I had already been sort of managing director of a small company in Pakistan, packages. And I thought I was, you know, I knew everything that, you know, one had to do, because I was the chief executive at the age of 28 in 1956, and I was here maybe 20 years later, 18 years later. So the days I spent, or the weeks that I spent at the business school, this was, you know, the advanced management program was meant for people who had already been in business or in places of responsibility for over 20 years, and who were ready for their last sort of job as a chief executive of a company, or about 10% of the student body was from the American Armed Forces. They were from the Navy, Air Force, and from the Army. People who were going to get a command of, for instance, the captain of our, the person who was elected as the president of our group, became the head of the American Air Force Academy in Colorado. So, and there it was quite an eye-opener because one thought that one knew everything, and so, and one found out that when not only did I not know everything, everybody else in the classroom was equally ignorant about most of the things that we were learning. But what came out of that 19 weeks of study at the business school was, soon after I went back to Pakistan, a year later, I was drafted by Mr. Bhutto to serve for the government. You know, he had already nationalized 6 companies belonging to my family, and so packages at that time was not nationalized. So I got a call from Islamabad that Bhutto was the president at that time, that he had appointed you to set up the fertilizer corporation. And I said, I knew nothing about fertilizer. So I asked my brothers, they said, if you want to save packages, you better sacrifice yourself. So I went, I accepted that opportunity, and I was for 4 years in government, and I realized that what I had learned at the business school here, I was able to practice quite a bit of that. And it was, it was a tremendous canvas. The government gave me $500 million to establish 3 new facilities and all that. But I soon realized that, the most important factor in any organization are the people. It's not the equipment or the machinery or the technology, are the people who really run the place. And that is where I got the idea of LUMS. And I said, the company that I was associated with, Packages, was a joint venture with a Swedish group which was very advanced in their technology and in their management. So we had no problem in training up our managers and people who worked with us. But the thought came to my mind was, what about doing something for people who do not have the opportunity to train managers? And that was the idea of LUMS. And the original thought was really to start with a business school. So I then sought help, and I rang up Razak Daud, who at that time, I'd met him casually because he was running Daud Hercules, the fertilizer company for his family. And I'd learned that he was teaching at Punjab University because he'd done his MBA from Columbia. So I called him up and I said, here's an opportunity, would you like to collaborate with me? I'm thinking of setting up the business school. And he and then Dr. Parvez Hassan, who got his doctorate from Harvard, the lawyer, to help us with the constitution and all that. So that was really the genesis of setting up LUMS, and it came out of what I learned across the river here. And so it's a part of learning from others and what I learned here. And LUMS, of course, as you know, in the last 33 years of its existence, has been able to make a small contribution in developing a new breed of entrepreneurs, a new breed of students. We today have close to 500 students pursuing either master's or PhD here in the United States. There's a girl who met me just now, she's doing her PhD at Brown. And we have a number of other students. And 2 weeks ago, we had a get-together of Fulbright alumni at LUMS. And there was the lady who organizes, who was in charge of the Fulbright program, and she said, the largest Fulbright program in the world is in Pakistan today. And the single largest beneficiary of the Fulbright program are students from LUMS. We've had over 600 students in the last 10 years who have benefited from this opportunity to come and study here in the United States. So LUMS has made a small contribution in what we are doing. So this is an example of what one has been able to do by way of translating learning into practice.
So let me ask you a harder question about learning from failure and learning from one's mistakes.
Yes, there is no shortage of failures, as far as my own career is concerned. We've had, I've been lucky that each failure was, didn't break your back, but it taught you a good lesson. And so there have been a large number of failures, but there's an old saying that, if you want to be a good rider, you have to keep on falling from the horse. So is it in business. And so luckily we've been able to survive those failures, but that did not, I never looked back. I always looked forward to taking up a new challenge.
So an example of a mistake that you think about or learned a lot from?
After coming back from the fertilizer corporation, I was very much interested in agriculture. So the Swedish group that we were working with is the Rousing family. One of their daughters is a great beneficiary at this school. She attended here, she got her PhD here. This is Elizabeth Rousing. They had, after our, sort of collaboration with them, they had developed this new technology of Tetra Pak, of liquid food packaging. And they were very much interested that we should introduce it in Pakistan, and I was very keen that we should do that. And we started, collecting milk, processing milk, packing milk. But I also wanted to set up a modern dairy farm. So I imported a plane load of dairy cows from Western Australia and set up a modern dairy farm outside Sheikhupura. And I thought I had hired the right person to manage it. I went and interviewed some people in England who were dairy farmers and selected somebody who is claimed to be third generation dairy farmer. And brought him out, and his wife, I unfortunately didn't meet his wife. She happened to be an Anglo-Indian. And she sort of impressed on him that, you have to act as a Saab. So he would only work 5 days a week and spend the weekend in Lahore instead of in Sheikhupura. And of course, the cattle have to be looked after around the clock. You can't delegate it to anybody else. The farm manager has to be there. So they were struck with foot and mouth disease and this disease and that. So within 6 months, the whole project came to zero. But that didn't sort of upset me. I said, all right, we go and buy milk from others instead of producing milk ourselves. So this is one of the failures. But now, this was about 30 years ago. I set up the first modern dairy farm. Now, I'm very happy to see that over, I would say about 70,000 cows, imported cows, are with a number of farmers who are living on the farm themselves and managing it properly. And so I did the sort of trailblazing of that thing, but it didn't work out in my case, but I'm so happy that others are succeeding.
Well, I can say that for people who are not working in a dairy farm, but other 9-to-5 jobs, we work 6 days a week, and Babar Sahab calls us on Sundays as well, bribing us with breakfast in inner city Lahore, but it's actually a work meeting even on a Sunday. So not only Babar Sahab himself works 7 days a week, but also most people who work for him. So Babar Sahab, tell us a little bit about that, in times of crisis, it could be a failure or a mistake or generally it's a political environment. What gives you strength? What keeps you going on?
Well, in today's environment in Pakistan, those of you who are in touch with the news and this and that, it's very depressing, but that doesn't really upset me too much because the small world in which I work, I mean, I can still continue to function and do whatever little I could. So I keep myself busy. I'm not sort of, there's an old Urdu saying that Ashama teri umre tabai hai ek raat use hans ke guzar de ya ro ke guzar de. So a person has a limited time in this world. I mean, even if I'm 92, so I have very limited time. But the idea is not to give up, to make sure that every minute of your life you are useful or productive, you enjoy your life, and do whatever you enjoy. So that has never depressed me.
So, Babar Sahab, until he was in 3rd grade, went to Sacred Heart School, which is also where Tina went and I went, because boys could only go till 3rd grade.
Yes, in those days. Now
there are no boys. And so when I was a student there, I used to hear the sisters who would run our place talk about Syed Babar Ali has given a donation, and then after school we'd go pick up my brothers from HSN, and there would be the Syed Babar Ali library. So I have known you for such a long time. I have known of you for such a long time, and I have been working with you for now 4 years or so. Can you talk about philanthropy itself? Because some people in the US also, they decide, okay, there's a certain percentage of wealth they're going to keep for themselves and the rest they're going to donate. Others don't do that. So what is that balance between spending on yourself and your own life versus giving to others? Because you have contributions, huge philanthropic contributions.
Not enough. Well, I think I owe it to my parents. My father was by the standards of the time that he lived, he was very prosperous. He was very, God had been he had been very successful. But he lived very modestly, and he was, always looking for opportunities to help others. And so was my mother. I mean, she came from a family which was a couple of steps higher than my father's family, when they got married in 1904. But she gave all support to my father to make him successful, and to see that the children were well brought up. And of course, we were a large brood. I was number 8 of number 9 children. But each child felt that he was the parent's favorite. Nobody ever felt that they didn't get enough attention. And my mother was again very modest in her own needs. I mean, she would often repeated, heard from her that ये औरतें ज़ेवर क्यों इतना ज़ेवर के पीछे क्यों भागती है? ज़ेवर ने कभी किसी का साथ दिया है? So this was the kind of words that I heard from my mother, and so I was very lucky that when I had the opportunity of having resources of my own on which I had control, I was able to make a small contribution in areas where I thought I could do a little bit. So, and this has given me tremendous satisfaction.
Babar Sahab, many people who want to either work, and not just in Pakistan, but in other parts of the world, or they want to move back home in Pakistan or other parts of the world, they are, for good reason, they are warned about that's a place where there's a lot of inefficiency, sometimes unethical practices, lack of professionalism. How have you coped with all of that, and in spite of those challenges, managed so much success in Pakistan?
Nobody forces you to be corrupt or do things which are not ethical. I mean, it depends. If you want to get something which you don't deserve, then you follow those practices. But we have always sought what we thought was our right, and we fought for it, and we invariably got it. So I don't think that you cannot exist in Pakistan without corruption. we at least I'm quite happy. My conscience is very clear that we've not bought our way through anything. We have worked hard, we worked honestly, we paid our taxes, we have done the right thing, we've not taken advantage of anybody, and God has been very kind. I have total faith in one's ability to stay on the straight and narrow path.
And what about lack of professionalism and just inefficiencies, bureaucratic? I mean, there's bureaucracy everywhere.
Bureaucracy, you can't do much about it, but within the people that you have working with you, you spend time with them, you train them, you give them an opportunity, you select them on merit, and you don't compromise on efficiency or, I mean, the one thing that we don't compromise is on lack of ethics. A person can, everybody makes mistakes, and if somebody makes a mistake and you lose money, a lot of money, nobody is ever being fired for that. But if you steal 1 rupee, he's out. So you don't compromise on basic values of life.
So Babar Sahib, if you could talk to yourself at the time, maybe when you were a student here, or if you were, in your 20s, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I mean, first of all, make yourself proficient in whatever you're doing, whatever subject you're trying to study, whatever profession you want to study. Make yourself, there's no limit to learning. And work hard, work honestly, and enjoy yourself. You must study what you enjoy. I mean, you don't have to be an engineer because your parents want you to be an engineer or a doctor. I mean, you should do whatever subject gives you satisfaction because you'll excel in it ultimately. And keep on learning. There is no limit to it. I mean, by the time you leave Harvard, 90% of what you've learned here, you've already forgotten. So it's a question of what they teach you at Harvard is how to learn. Keep on learning for the rest of your life. And as I said earlier on, at the age of 92, I'm still learning.
So that's actually, I'm trying not to ask this question, but you just said 92 again. I've known you for 3 years, and for 3 years you've been saying you're 92 years old. If you're going to lie about your age, you should take a decade off at least. So how old are you really?
Really, I'll tell you, if I stay on for another 6 weeks, I'll be 93 on the 30th of June. So that's not very far away.
Your birthday is celebrated in December, but really it's in June. So it's all very
December, they say, because the kids, my grandchildren are spread all over, so that was one time that they were together and we celebrated the
Because I was pretty sure that you said you were turning over 92 again in the summer, but okay, so okay.
I think these people have come from a long distance, but can we leave the last 20 minutes to them to ask
that was the last question. So we'll
Yes.
take 2 or 3 questions together so we get most people in, and then so just go ahead. Make sure you introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, what you're studying, and if you're studying, and the question then. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum. I'm Ali. I'm a graduate student over the other side of the river at Boston University. I went to business school. I'm pursuing an MBA over there. I'm an alum of LUMS. I'm LUMS class of 15. And my question is going to be about LUMS because that has had a very profound effect on my life and the way I perceive myself. You came up with the idea of LUMS and you executed that, and I'm sure there were several roadblocks and several obstacles that you and your team must have faced. But today LUMS is an icon, and in my opinion, it's mashallah, a great place of learning, and personally it has had a profound effect on the way that I look at the world. And do you see room or do you see prospects of institutions similar to LUMS coming up in Pakistan in the future? And should we, as individuals, rely on the government to perhaps pursue something of that sort in terms of education, or does it again in this, in the case of LUMS, does it fall on the shoulders of private individuals who have the means to do so, to perhaps push for education standards that are as great as LUMS is?
Okay.
Well, I mean, Pakistan needs more than 100 LUMS. There's no, the country needs very good education institutions. And we've not had any problems. I mean, we started as a business school, and I would say that my own, what little I have learned in the last 33 years is that if your intentions are right, I mean, the opportunities keep on coming your way. You're neither short of opportunities, neither short of funds. You will keep on getting. Niyat aapki sahi honi chahiye. Now, as far as government is concerned, unfortunately, what I've seen in the last 15 years, that there has been a gradual deterioration of public sector universities because these politicians went away from merit. They started filling in posts based on favoritism rather than merit. And an institution even like the government college, which was the premier education institution, which is now a university, is not the same which I attended as an undergraduate. So private sector, you see, there are very few. Habib University is a very good example of private sector initiative in Karachi, which is not for profit. But I'm not aware of any other institution in the private sector which is not for profit. GIK was started well. It has done well, but it could have done better. But there again, the quality of faculty in the country is not up to international standards. We have been very fortunate that because of the facilities that we have in Lahore, is a good location to attract returning faculty to live in Lahore because of living conditions there, education for their children and all that. And so the ambience that we have at LUMS we've been able to attract, at least it's the first port of call for any returning faculty who wants to come back to Pakistan. We have the choice there, and we've been very lucky. And so, I mean, the country needs education, and I think this is the only key to future success of Pakistan, is that we've got to keep on investing in education and quality education in the future. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, thank you for your time. My name is Farzan, I'm from Karachi, and I'm an MPA candidate here at Harvard Kennedy and MBA candidate at MIT. My question is regarding your comment you made when you moved back from here at Harvard. Mr. Bhutto asked you to set up a few industries. That really had to do more with your network and connections from your background as well as your past. What advice do you have to someone who does not have that network moving back to Pakistan and wants to contribute towards the development of the country?
Well, I mean, there has been a growth of the private sector in Pakistan, in industry, in business, in banking, in insurance. And if you have skills where you can market yourself, I think there is opportunity for any talented person to come back, because the country needs good talent. You don't have to have connections. You arrive there and there's a lot of advertisement. If you see the papers, I mean, they're full of, and good companies that are hiring people on merit. So there is, I would not say that it's difficult for a person with talent to get a job.
What about in the public sector?
Public sector, I would not advise. Because public sector itself is struggling today. And there's a debate going on whether the government should have a public sector or not. So I would not advise anybody looking at the public sector. Unless you want to go into government. But you've got to have the right age and all. You've got to, take the entrance examination. LUMS today has, I think, about close to 100 of our alumni are working for government today in their superior services.
So the distinction being, unless you want to go into the civil service and the bureaucracy versus, taking up a
job in a public sector corporation.
right, as a technocrat or something. Okay, so we'll take 2 or 3 questions together and then have Babar Zara.
Assalamualaikum, sir. My name is Zara. I'm a Fulbright scholar here at the Education School, and I've also studied from LUMS. I think so. I understand the vision behind sort of creating LUMS, but do you have any thoughts, or have you given any thought to sort of building skills for the young generation that may not be able to have the access to the kind of good quality education you get at LUMS, or generally within industry? How do you see our country being able to expand industry to and to give sort of skills and good work to the young generation?
Well, I've started 2 high schools, one for girls and one for boys, in a village which is about a couple of hours from Lahore in Kasur district. And the girls' high school has been going for the last 4 years, and these are, because of the quality of facilities that we have provided. Girls come from 21 surrounding villages are coming to the school on their own. They don't have to pay any fees. They get a free uniform, free breakfast, free lunch, free books, free education. And we find that the intellectual response of these girls who have never been to have all lived in villages all their life is very, very encouraging. And what we are working on is that we want this to be a nursery for producing future leadership in the rural areas. Because unless you have people from the bottom of the pyramid coming into politics, into management of their local governments, you'll never have democracy in the country. Otherwise, you'll have these mafias in the big cities buying out people and votes. So that is the idea. We are grooming them, giving them good education, and at the same time opening their minds up that the world is open to them if they work hard. And the selection for the girls in these schools is on merit alone. And we set up a boys' school. There we've gone up to class 7, so it take about 5 years before we fill up the whole school, because we want to control the quality of the school. So this is again a very, very small effort in trying to create a model and an example for others to follow, to build up our people. God in His benevolence is been very generous with, as far as brain power is concerned. It's not given only to the rich people's children. I mean, the poor people's children are equally bright. So what they need is opportunity and grooming and ability to be able to learn and study in the right environment. This is what we're trying to do in a small way. And the whole idea is really to make this as a model for others to follow.
Yes?
Assalamualaikum, Professor. My name is Sophia.
A little bit louder.
I work in Boston.
Can you speak a lot louder?
Yes. My question for you was, universities are intended as places where you are able to freely exchange ideas. I know that recently this has become challenging, sort of with, Amrali Jan's recent harassment. It's hard to talk about topics like, what's going on in Balochistan, for example, at places like LUMS, and it continues to get harder. What steps have you felt necessary to take to protect the exercise of free speech at LUMS, and how do you see that particular trend evolving with time?
Unfortunately, the people who today try and run, the thinking of the government, they want to restrict people from thinking freely, as what you're trying to refer to. I had a complaint from the authorities to complaining that we're talking about Manto in the school at LUMS. I was quite shocked because we said, Manto bhi padhate hain, Ghalib bhi padhate hain, Sawq bhi padhate hain, Iqbal bhi padhate hain. To them, even Manto is not acceptable today. And this is something which people in your age have to fight against. I mean, we certainly give every opportunity to our students to think outside the box and to think freely, whatever they want to do. We have tried to have as liberal a policy at LUMS. I mean, some years ago I was told that, you know, in the boys' dormitory they used to knock at the door at 5 o'clock in the morning, ke namaz ke liye tum utho. So we took steps again. This is namaz padhni hai, wo khud hi chala jayega. Why do you want to wake up people? So we don't want people to be irreligious, but people should have the freedom to do whatever they want to do. I mean, at the age of 18, they're grown up. They should realize what needs to be done. So this is something that we certainly promote. Liberal thinking people should be able to do what they want to do, and but unfortunately that's not the case outside the campus of LUMS.
Bajir? Yeah?
Hi, my name is Varda. My question is, it stems from the cow farm. Basically, you mentioned that the reason for the failure of the modern cow farm was lack of good leadership or the person you put in charge. When you look in about building a team, whether it's the team or the leadership, are there particular characteristics you're looking for, or have you had success in certain kind of people or anything like that? Do you have a formula for that, or it depends on every kind of?
No. I mean, first of all, when almost, I would say 99% of the people who are working in our group, and it's a fairly large group, and we would have, I would say, close to 10,000 people working in our group, of whom 2,000 would be white-collar workers. And we select everybody on merit, test their intelligence, their ability to read, write, think, speak. We spent a lot of time in grooming them, and not everybody makes it, but I would say about 30% of the people survive after 3 or 4 years. We recruit new people, and the ones who leave us and may not be our rejects, but they don't want to work for us. They see a better opportunity elsewhere, so they're welcome to go. But I think if you work hard at grooming people, they don't disappoint you. You have to trust them. You have to treat them as your colleagues, not as master-servant relationship.
I would also add that Varda has a PhD from MIT and is now running her own business. So, final 2 questions, perhaps. Yeah?
Ji.
So my name is Umair. I am from Lahore, went to Aga Khan, so my affiliation with your name predates my time. Boss and I went to HSN, where I sort of grew up around Syed Babar Ali. We recently had my wedding shoot outside the library. That's interesting. What I would like to ask is how have you made a conscious effort in all of your projects to create a space where your graduates feel indebted to the country and to their home base and feel like returning? Because I feel, coming from Aga Khan also, I think brain drain is one of the biggest problems Pakistan has, and as somebody who runs a business there, you probably feel the need for more well-trained people and the pinch that comes from not having them more readily available. So what are some ways that individuals like yourself or others can create those spaces?
I have met many very successful Pakistanis who've done well abroad, here in Europe and elsewhere. And I have never tried to persuade anybody to come back. I mean, that has to be an inner voice that you want to come back. And I said, if you are wanting to come back, I'd like to talk to you and tell you what opportunity there is. But this is your decision whether you want to go back or not. I mean, because there are circumstances, there are certain compulsions that keep you here. To me, I mean, I could have chosen any place in the world to go and live in, I could have made my life, but I thought Pakistan was the best place for me to be in. And I have no regrets on that part at all. So this is an individual's personal feeling. To me, there is nothing more sacred than the Pakistan soil. It has a certain pull, certain love for me. And that's why I go to the old city every Sunday.
And call all of us there too for work.
So it is individuals, I mean, America is very attractive, it is very, it has all the facilities in the world that you want. But that's not all in life.
Okay, last question, yes?
Hello, my name is Ifra Idris. I graduated last year from LUMS. I'm one of the NOP scholars and currently I'm pursuing my PhD in computer science at Brown University. I had one question from Sir Babar. It's like right now I'm in my first year of PhD, I'm figuring out stuff. So when you were like in any endeavor of your life, if you just take, for example, building LUMS or making LUMS, there would be times when you would have faced obstacles and you would have thought that maybe all the effort that you're investing in it, it might not be worth it. Or maybe the fruits that are going to come, like there would be times that you'd be like, that how am I going, maybe this is not possible what I'm trying to dream for. So what was that one advice that you gave to yourself and that made you like, no, that let's proceed and we make this happen? So
Well, you get your PhD first.
I am going to.
Get a good postdoc.
I am.
And then see what opportunity. People will run after you if you've got the right talent. Because there's a worldwide shortage of talented people. So you'll be among the unique people to be chased by others.
Wonderful.
So I want to thank all of you to
Thank
give
you
me
so
this
much.
opportunity to meet you, and good luck to all of you. Wherever you are, whenever you want to come to Pakistan, if I'm still around, I'll be very happy to offer whatever little help I can give you and advice, whatever there is. Because to me, there is no better place than Pakistan.